Ohrnberger, Fox Sports Radio, our buddy, is going to join us here in a sec. Guys, let us know when he's ready. This is circulating on Instagram, which is coincidental because listen to what he's talking about.
The San Francisco 49ers are an Instagram filter. It doesn't matter which quarterback.
That is so good.
It doesn't matter which quarterback played in this system. They would look way better than they did before going through that filter. If you put Kirk Cousins in San Francisco this year,
100%.
they're going to the Super Bowl. If you put Geno Smith in the San Francisco system this year, they're going to the Super Bowl. Brock Purdy is off to a great start with his career, but we're looking at him through the Instagram filter of the San Francisco 49ers.
Do you agree with any portion of that?
I mean, the Kirk Cousins piece is interesting, and it's a quarterback that Kyle Shanahan reportedly had always coveted. And so you think about Kirk Cousins, a guy who's very, very accurate in this system, and it's not really a leap to think that Cousins in this system could be a good quarterback and could win. Would they be in the Super Bowl? I don't know. These are some of the hypotheticals that I have a hard time with because you really will never know. You never could possibly know if quarterback A was in situation B, how would they do? I know that the Geno Smith one, to me, is a much bigger reach. And how far down do we want to go on that list? If Bryce Young was in this system, would they be in the Super Bowl? I mean, where do we stop? Where do we stop with this madness?
Let's ask, because Rich Ohrnberger is, I believe, on with us and ready to rock. Odyssey app and YouTube. I do give you credit for the 49ers are an Instagram filter. That's funny. That's very creative, Rich. That's really good.
It's true. It's true. And you know what? Instead of looking at this from only one angle, look at it from this angle. It's not that I'm saying that Brock Purdy's no good. Because if Brock Purdy wasn't good, he wouldn't be able to play in any system. It is really hard to play in the NFL. So this isn't really a commentary on Brock. Because the quarterbacks I was comparing him, by the way, to in that commentary, in my opinion, are good quarterbacks also. What I was really pointing out was John Lynch has built a Ferrari of an offense. There are weapons everywhere you look. Kyle Shanahan is an awesome head coach and a really good play caller offensively. So when I look at the whole picture there, I really do see an Instagram filter for quarterbacks. You walk into that system, you are guaranteed, if you're good, to be successful. If you can be great at times, you can be a playoff winner, and in the case of Brock Purdy, potentially a Super Bowl winner.
But does that mean that you have to be just decent, or do you have to be better than just good or average in order to be as successful as Brock has?
No, you got to be better than good or average. I think Brock's off to a great start to his career. I really do. I think that he's struggled in the postseason. I think some of the composure issues in the first half of that game last week or 2 weeks ago now, against the Detroit Lions, and then what we saw for 3 quarters against the Green Bay Packers, it felt like the lights got a little bright for Brock. He settled in the second half, especially against the Lions, and he played some really, really good football. But overall, I think Brock Purdy is off to a great start with his career. But, I mean, doesn't mean that he would look as good. Let's put it this way. If Brock was drafted to the Arizona Cardinals and was trying to help them win instead of watching Kyler Murray, would he be even nearly as successful as Kyler Murray? No, probably not. If he was in Washington with Ron Rivera, would he be as successful? No, probably not. But he's been paired with a great quarterback whisperer of an offensive coordinator and head coach in Kyle Shanahan. And he's been, coupled with some of the best playmakers in the league. And he's absolutely footing the bill like a playoff quarterback should. It's not all perfect, and I think he has learned already some hard lessons, and he's got more hard lessons to learn probably. But I've been impressed with Brock. I really have. I mean, it doesn't denigrate him to say that the San Francisco 49ers have an awesome system, and he's benefiting from that system because he's doing work too. But there's no question in my mind that he's benefiting more from the San Francisco 49ers system than the San Francisco 49ers offensively are benefiting from Brock Purdy's play.
Yeah, interesting comments. Rich Ohrnberger with us, Willard and Dibs. I'll say this, Rich. I think there's a baseline point that you absolutely have, which is that Kyle Shanahan makes every quarterback perform better than that quarterback probably will anywhere else. I think that's a fair point. Here's almost my issue with it, besides the Geno Smith thing, which I'm going to reject that part, but fine. We could disagree there. But here's my question. Aren't you saying that Kyle Shanahan is the best coach in the NFL by far? If you're saying that his system is such that half the quarterbacks in the league could take him to the Super Bowl, because no other coach can say that.
Yeah. I mean, him and Andy Reid, in terms of offensive system and ability to play call and play sequencing and all of the things that we've seen him do with, I mean, think about the quarterbacks that Kyle Shanahan has worked with. And I'm not trying to denigrate any of them, but Matt Ryan, Jimmy Garoppolo, we've seen him with CJ Beathard have success, with Nick Mullins to a greater or lesser extent have some success. Jimmy G, Brock Purdy. I mean, we're not talking about a list of guys who you would put anywhere near, the top 10 of quarterbacks in the league most years of their career. I mean, Matt Ryan was, as an offensive coordinator in Atlanta, I mean, maybe he flirted with the top 10. Matt Ryan kind of reminds me almost as like a Dak Prescott, now. But Kyle Shanahan is incredible. He is absolutely incredible. I put his mind offensively next to some of the greatest coordinators of this generation. He is truly, I mean, he's truly transformed how to attack defenses, and he's done it with brilliant personnel. Like, we have to remember when we talk about the San Francisco 49ers, they're spoiled with riches with Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey after that trade that was brilliant last year, and George Kittle has been so incredible, and Kyle Juszczyk, he's been incredible. I mean, they've got a lot going for them in terms of player personnel. But at quarterback, is there a coach who has done more with less? Gosh, every time I try to compliment Kyle Shanahan, it sounds like I'm completely smashing these quarterbacks.
There it is.
Fair to the quarterback.
There it is.
I know, but I'm trying to compliment Kyle Shanahan. You guys know what I'm doing. I think Kyle Shanahan is a really smart guy.
But Rich, that's why I want to pin this, because this is something that we hear nationally, and I'm not even saying you're wrong. I'm saying to everyone, you have to pick a side. If you're going to say that Brock Purdy is in some way a product of a system, which on some level is what you're saying, if you're going to say that, then I want to hear in the next sentence, so therefore Kyle Shanahan is the best coach in the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, there's still an Andy Reid. There's still an Andy Reid. And I think we've seen Andy Reid have a similar struggle, so to speak, in Kansas City. Look how much better Alex Smith, another 49ers quarterback, looked in Kansas City as compared to his time in San Francisco. He looked more consistent. He looked more confident and comfortable. He didn't play outside of himself. And this is all prior to Kyle Shanahan getting there anyways. But Andy Reid did such a nice job with Alex Smith. But he realized after, I forget what it was, maybe it was 5 years of Alex Smith starting before they said, yeah, you know what? There's a ceiling here. There's a ceiling, and we've reached it a couple times now. So we got to take a gamble. We got to roll the dice. We're going to stick it out with him for another season, but we're going to go trade up in the draft. We're going to get ourselves a Patrick Mahomes, and we're going to see if we can't groom this kid into being what's missing at that position on this roster, because we really need that final piece. And they found it with Patrick Mahomes. But that's that's a hell of a company to be in if I'm mentioning Kyle Shanahan's name in the same breath as Andy Reid. Because you're talking about Andy Reid, who's been to 4 Super Bowls. He's won 2 of them. Potentially, if things work out for KC this upcoming weekend, we're talking about a 3-time Super Bowl winner. No shade to Kyle or to Shanahan at all. I think he's if he's not number 1, he's number 2 behind Andy Reid, because they've done so much in Kansas City during his time there. So I do believe that Andy Reid is a top coach in the league, and I think when it's all said and done, he'll be considered a Hall of Fame head coach. There's no question in my mind. But Andy Reid still coaches in this league, so it's hard to say he's the top coach in the league.
And you mentioned Mahomes and Andy Reid wanting to trade up and get Mahomes and ultimately coach him up and get him to be the player that he's all become to be. Do we not give Kyle Shanahan that same credit in terms of Brock Purdy in not only his system and his offensive laminated play sheet, but being able to get a quarterback and coach all these guys up to be better? Does he deserve more credit than he's actually given around the league?
Yeah, I do. And frankly, I felt the same way. It's odd that they're facing each other in the Super Bowl. I felt the same way about Andy Reid with Alex Smith all those years ago, because he took a 3-win Kansas City team, or it was 3-win or a 5-win team, and he turned it into an 11-win team in 1 year. And it was after trading for Alex Smith and catching him up in a hurry of what his expectations were of Alex Smith. And so he helped Smith find what it was that was special about him and reclaim it in this league. And I think that Kyle Shanahan has done that with several quarterbacks. Jimmy Garoppolo. And we know the story from the Seth Wickersham piece. It sounded like he really was interested in Brady. They got his backup, and they turned him into a Super Bowl quarterback. I mean, that was just incredible work. I think Kyle Shanahan, I don't think he gets enough credit for what he's done so far in his career. And I really hope for his sake, I really hope for Niners fans' sake that, they can win a Super Bowl and they can celebrate either, an amazing game by Brock Purdy where he announces his arrival as one of these great quarterbacks in the NFL and pokes a lot of eyes on the way doing it, including my own, because like I said, I consider him a second-tier quarterback working with an elite coach. He has flashes of greatness, but I don't know if there's the consistency there yet. I think Kyle Shanahan, though, is a great coach who's probably underrated for how much he gets out of players, especially at that position.
Rich Ohrnberger, Fox Sports Radio, 6 years in the league, former teammate of Tom Brady. And so that's why, Rich, I want to ask you this. People get their, the hair on the back of the neck goes freaking crazy whenever Brock Purdy's name gets brought up in the same sentence as Joe Montana because of the size and Tom Brady because of the draft status. But I heard you last week talking about how early in Brady's career, it was Belichick that sort of set him up for success. We were playing around looking at the box score of the Super Bowl the first time Tom Brady won it. He only threw for 145 yards. It's not like he was out there slinging it. So tell me this. Let's just be courageous and go there. How would you compare the start, just the start, of Tom Brady's career and the start of Brock Purdy's career?
They are insanely comparable. It is eerie how comparable they are. It really is. Now, in fact, Brock Purdy actually probably has an edge here, a slight edge, because he started more games in college than Tom Brady, And so I look at Brock Purdy as kind of going through it a little bit more, playing in bigger moments all throughout the course of his career as compared to Brady at Michigan. But they, low round draft picks, injuries foisted them into action, better play than anybody expected, and early success that really led the team, almost forcing the team's hand to stick it out with them for at least one more year. Tom Brady says it himself. He says, if the Tuck Rule game was the end of the season, that would have been it. Bledsoe would have been the starting quarterback, and then who knows what happens next. But the tuck rule wasn't the end of that game, and Vinatieri did knock that kick through at the end of that season, and Vinatieri did knock that kick through, and he went on to appear in 10 Super Bowls, winning 7 of them. So I'm not saying that Brock Purdy's career is going to mimic Tom Brady's, seamlessly. I'm sure there's going to be divergence here soon. But over the first 2 seasons, there are eerie similarities between how they've gotten started. And like I said, even though I look at Brock Purdy now through this prism of, okay, he's probably a second-tier quarterback and he's being elevated by the players around him and his coaching staff, especially Kyle Shanahan. We could have easily said the same thing about Tom Brady in the early 2000s. But at some point, it switched. At some point, Tom Brady became Tom Brady. And then the world came to Tom Brady, came to the New England Patriots to play with Tom Brady. If Brock Purdy keeps it up, if he keeps improving, if we see almost like a Josh Allen-esque improvement year over year over year, where he just seemed to get better and better and better the first 4 years of his career, Brock Purdy very easily could have multiple touchdowns, or I should say he could potentially have 2 Super Bowl victories under his belt before he has 5 years in the NFL. That's a reality.
Yeah, and that's basically what Tom was doing when he came out and won in 01, 03, and 04, and he started in 00, but actually didn't play. And, Rich, it's interesting when you lay out the comparisons because Tom Brady, his first full year when they won the Super Bowl, was 22nd in the NFL in passing yardage. He only threw for 189.5 yards per game. So he was, way down the list behind Warner, Manning, Favre, and the rest of them. So I do think that the comp is a fair one. So Rich, when we look at the Super Bowl and we get to Sunday, which way you leaning in terms of who wins the game? Is it the superstar QB with a great coach or the overall better roster and also a great coach?
Yeah, geez, this is one of those matchups where if this was, the Niners are slim favorites here, deservedly so for the way they played throughout the majority of the regular season, the way they came back against the Lions. And, the Kansas City Chiefs, they've still got some problems, and they reared their head in the second half against the Baltimore Ravens. That offense still isn't quite right. It looked better against the Dolphins in the divisional round, but against the Baltimore Ravens in the second half, they got hemmed in pretty good. So, whether the 49ers are a slight favorite to pick them, I really do think it's a coin flip. I lean slightly more to the Chiefs side of the fence, and here's the only reason. I think experience matters. I remember back in 2012 when I was with the Patriots and we went to the Super Bowl site in Indianapolis. We were getting ready to play the Giants. It was my first experience there, and I wasn't even going to play in the game because I was in uninjured reserve. And I remember the entire week, you couldn't focus on anything else other than the game. You kept getting asked about the game. Your family's flying in town. They're asking you about the game. Are you nervous? You have media days. Everybody's being interviewed. Everybody is surrounding you. It's a very uncomfortable and unfamiliar situation. And it's uncomfortable and unfamiliar to most of the players on the 49ers. I think Daniel Kilgore is the only guy who actually played on this roster in the last Super Bowl. And so there's very limited experience as to how Super Bowl week operates, for the San Francisco 49ers or period for a lot of these guys on this roster. So I think that experience is actually going to benefit the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that it is going to have an impact on the game. And as we discussed earlier, I feel like Brock Purdy had those moments where the big lights of the moment in the divisional round, in the NFC Championship game, it caught up with him a little bit. And we know that's not going to happen to Patrick Mahomes. So I give a slight edge to the Chiefs in this one. But like I said, this could easily be a coin flip for me.
Now go ahead and answer that question again, but say it differently.
Try it again, Rich.
Yeah. Okay. No, I will. So check this out. I'll do it differently. So listen, the Kansas City Chiefs, it was a rough ride all season offensively for them, and it reared its head in the postseason. And there have been distractions. Taylor Swift, Kadarius Toney. Andy Reid even had a tragic situation with his family. So there have been things that I'm sure have gotten in the way of concentrating completely and solely on football for the Chiefs. And plus, they've got that perfect practice field at the Raiders facility. They're being coddled all week while the San Francisco 49ers are slogging it out at UNLV. So for all those reasons, I say the 49ers will win Super Bowl 58.
Yeah, that was much better.
Thank
you for making that adjustment. That was well done.
And luckily, we do mulligans here on this program, so you used your mulligan and you hit it in the fairway.
Breakfast ball, guys. Thank you so much.
Perfect. All right, thanks for talking to us, buddy. It's always good to hear you.
You got it, Mark. You got it, Dibs. I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, Rich.
There it is. Rich Ohrnberger predicting the 49ers will win the Super Bowl.
Eventually predicting that the 49ers would win. He got around to it. And
yeah.